All right, let's get into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the story of a civilization that, really, more than any other, has shaped the world we all live in today. We are, of course, talking about Greece, a place where myths, philosophy, and politics all smashed together to create the very foundations of Western civilization.
I mean, it's a massive question, right? When you stop and look around at our art, our politics, our science, even just the way we tell stories, you can see the echoes of ancient Greece absolutely everywhere. So how on earth did this one small corner of the Mediterranean become such a cultural and intellectual superpower?
Just think about it for a second. The idea that we should vote for our leaders, that comes from them. The way we question the world around us in science and philosophy, them too. Even the plays we watch and the sports we celebrate at the Olympics, these aren't just dusty old concepts. They're the pillars of our global culture, and they all trace their roots right back to the Greek world. So, let's start at the beginning.
Okay, Act 1. Our story begins, like all the best stories do, way back in its mythical origins. In this first part, we're going to explore how this unique Greek identity was forged, from an age of gods and heroes all the way to a stunning golden age of human genius.
Before history was written down, it was sung. And for the ancient Greeks, the world was just buzzing with the gods of Olympus, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, and the incredible struggles of heroes that we read about in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. These weren't just bedtime stories, not at all. They were a kind of cultural blueprint that shaped how Greeks saw the world for thousands of years. The story of Greece really kicks off with two pretty different, super early civilizations. Over on the island of Crete, you had the Minoans, a really sophisticated society of sea traders. But at the same time, on the mainland, you had the Mycenaeans, who built this incredible warrior culture. These are the guys whose heroes would become legendary in the Trojan War. These two very different societies really laid the groundwork for everything that came next. So after those early civilizations collapsed, Greece went into what historians call a dark age. But out of that period of decline, something totally new started to bubble up. Around 800 BCE, the polis, which is the independent city-state, was born. Cities like Athens and Sparta became these fierce rivals. But then you had events like the very first Olympic Games in 77-6 BCE that started to create a common, shared Greek identity.
And then came this incredible moment of crisis. The gigantic Persian Empire invaded, and honestly, against all the odds, the small, divided Greek city-states actually united and pulled off a stunning victory. This incredible achievement, especially for Athens, just unleashed this wave of confidence and creativity that would basically set the world on fire.
That victory kicked off what we now call the Golden Age, and it's a surprisingly short period of time. We're talking just a few generations. But the explosion of intellectual and artistic genius that happened in that brief window, well, it would become the very bedrock of Western civilization. And what an explosion it was. I mean, in this one little slice of time, you've got Socrates teaching everyone to question everything. Then his student Plato, who goes on to found the first real university. You've got Herodotus, who pretty much invents the whole idea of history, and Aristotle, who lays down the rules of logic. It's just a staggering, mind-blowing concentration of genius.
Which brings us to Act 2. After hitting those incredible heights, the story, of course, takes a dramatic turn. This next chapter isn't so much about Greek armies conquering other people, but about how Greek ideas ended up conquering the world, even as Greece's own power started to fade.
Yeah, the Golden Age ended in tragedy. The two biggest city-states, Athens and Sparta, turned on each other in this long, brutal, devastating war. The conflict left all of Greece completely exhausted and vulnerable, which, as it happens, paved the way for a brand new, ambitious power that was rising up in the north.
And that power was Macedon. First, you had King Philip II, who united all the fractured Greek states. Then his son, Alexander, did the unthinkable. In just over a decade, he conquered the entire Persian Empire, marching his armies from Egypt all the way to India. But he wasn't just a conqueror, he was an exporter of culture. He created this new Hellenistic world where Greek ideas, language, and art spread absolutely everywhere.
But after Alexander's death, his massive empire just shattered into pieces. So the Greek world, even though it was culturally dominant, was politically a mess, divided and weak. It was really only a matter of time before the next great superpower, Rome, showed up and, by 146 BCE, officially conquered Greece. But this is where the story gets really fascinating. Okay, so the Romans won on the battlefield, no question. But they were completely, utterly captivated by Greek culture. As the famous line goes, Greece, though conquered, conquered its conqueror. Roman art, philosophy, science, literature, it was all built on a Greek foundation.
And this resilience is maybe one of the most incredible parts of this whole story. For more than 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire basically acted as a giant cultural container, preserving Greek learning and books and art. And then, even under 400 years of Ottoman rule, the Greek people just tenaciously held on to their language, their religion, and their cultural memory, keeping that flame of their identity alive through all those centuries.
And that brings us to our final act, the rebirth of Greece. This is the story of how that ancient identity, preserved for so long, finally fought its way back to independence and forged the modern nation we know today.
Freedom or death. I mean, what a powerful, uncompromising battle cry. That was the slogan of the Greek War of Independence. Starting in 1821, and totally inspired by the ideals of their ancient past, the Greek people rose up to reclaim their own nation after centuries of being ruled by others. It was a long, brutal fight, but in the end, they did it.
But the road to becoming a modern nation was anything but smooth. The 20th century was just full of conflict. From the Balkan Wars to the unbelievable suffering of 2 world wars, which included a horrific Nazi occupation. The nation even had to endure a military dictatorship in the late 60s and early 70s. But then, in 1974, in this moment of just profound historical echo, democracy, the ancient Greek invention, was finally and firmly restored. And that's what paved the way for Greece to join the European Union and take its place as a modern European state.
Which brings us right up to the Greece of today. It's a modern European nation, for sure, but its identity is still so deeply connected to its unparalleled ancient heritage. You see it everywhere, from the tourism industry that's centered around ancient sites to the incredible pride in its democratic foundations. In Greece, the past and the present aren't separate things. They're woven together into one single continuous story.
So I guess that leaves us with one final thought. When you think about everything Greece has given us, democracy, philosophy, science, art, which of those ideas do you think is the most powerful, the most relevant in your life today? It's a legacy that's still challenging and inspiring all of us thousands of years later.